Welcome to the Morning Report, a production of fightbackmedia.com, the #1 source of urban conservative information in America.
Good morning, and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is William Lawson. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, fightbackmedia.com, and fightbackmediatv.com. We appreciate you being here today. It's another really special day because when we can find people who are in our camp and that we can partner with, it's really an exciting time. And I think that part of what's been missing, and I told you guys this, part of what's been missing is that conservatives by their nature are sort of lone wolves. And the problem with being a lone wolf, you can be easily picked off by the hunter. So the idea is not to be the lone wolf. The idea is to have a network, to have at least people that you know you can go to and find out information and partner with. And this is one of the folks we have here today. Over here, I'm not sure what screen, how this is being mirrored, but there you go. Good. Guy who's also his own camera person. his name is Demetrius Minor.
Easier for all of us here.
and the cool thing about Demetrius Minor over here is that I know that we're partnering on Zoom, and we could have just partnered at a local restaurant because we could drive to the same place because we live in the same town.
Always down for a meal.
Yeah, me and you both, friend. Me and you both. And I want to thank Demetrius for coming on today. Demetrius is involved in a project that a lot of us have been talking about for a while concerning the death penalty. I know. Everybody's like, can we talk about that? Yes, we not only can we talk about it, we should talk about it, and for a number of reasons. Demetrius, again, thank you for coming on this morning. Tell our viewers, listeners, about the project that I found you on here recently.
Absolutely. So I serve as the executive director of Conservatives Concerned, which was previously named Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty. So to sort of give a brief synopsis of its origins, Conservatives Concerned About the Death Penalty was birthed in March 2013, and it was birthed at CPAC. And it started off with some conservative lawmakers and policymakers in Montana who wanted to have the conversation of what it would look like to talk to those conservative, libertarian, right-of-center audiences about why they should be concerned about state-sanctioned violence, the use of capital punishment, and why it's not in alignment with conservative principles. And so that work has been going on since 2013, and last year, we sort of rebranded, we shortened the name, changed the logo, gave the website a facelift. And since 2013, it had been a project of Equal Justice USA. Well, this year, the beginning of this year, to be precise, we had the conversation of what it would look like for us to be a standalone entity so that we can be the premier voice in the conservative movement when it comes to raising concerns about capital punishment and other issues that are linked to public safety and to the criminal justice system. And so as of 30 days ago, or roughly 30 days ago, we have branched off of the parent company, and we're a standalone org now.
Wow. Okay, so you're on your own. Now, for a lot of folks who watch or whatever, who watch or listen, a lot of people make the assumption that if you are a Republican/conservative, you are eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth kind of person.
Yeah.
Explain to people why we're going to approach this from from a number of different ways that I'm sure you're prepared for. Why maybe fiscally, because all my libertarian folks were fiscal first folks. Those were all the early Tea Party guys who were all fiscal first. From a fiscal standpoint, where eliminating the death penalty may be the most conservative or most fiscally responsible position.
Yeah, so nothing moves a lawmaker, a conservative lawmaker, more than dollars and cents. When we're talking about, if you want to label it controversial opinions, there's different approaches. There's the moral, there's the theological, philosophical, and whatnot. But when it comes down to brass tacks, you want to know exactly what the dollars look like. So it costs more to have a death penalty sentence than to have someone serve a sentence of life without parole. Let me give you some examples. In the state of Maryland, before Maryland repealed the death penalty, I believe it was in 2013 or 2016. My memory is a little foggy on the exact year. But anyways, Maryland spent $185 million on 5 executions. That's literally a handful over a 20-year time period. $185 million. Well, people want to know, well, why does it cost so much? Well, there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, new trial, new jury, and with that comes new fees that are accrued over many years. Because what happens is that the appeals process is such a lengthy endeavor that these fees start to mount up. And so that's why a death penalty sentence is so expensive. And also, when you look at what's being spent on the death penalty and you contrast that with a life without parole sentence, where it warrants us to ask ourselves some questions as to what would it be better spent on? Here are some things. More services for victims, survivors, and their families. More resources for law enforcement to accurately do their job. And perhaps, as conservatives, we believe that government is most effective when it is small and when it is limited. So instead of expanding the reach and the use of big government, why not give those resources to community entities that can be served as violence intervention programs that will prevent someone from facing a death row sentence anyways? So these are conversations that libertarians and conservatives should be having.
That's very interesting, because the appeals process, as it should be, is lengthy, which is why people wonder how does this person get convicted and sentenced, and then we don't hear about their execution for 25 years.
Right.
Well, because there's court cases going on and lawyers getting paid.
Yeah.
That's why everybody's getting paid in the meantime.
Yeah. These things are not expeditious as to where they're done in 30 days. It takes time. Yeah. And so there's a counter argument of, well, maybe we should just speed that up. Well, we already because these type of cases of this type of magnitude is prone to human error. Why would we want to amplify that risk? We have over 200 death row exonerees. You and I live in the great state of Florida. Florida is the state with the most exonerees. Florida is the state with the most individuals on death row. Why would you want to make those numbers even go higher by rushing through something that should be as concise as possible?
Yeah, as my wife and I were talking about last night when I told her I was going to talk to you, is this idea that there were people on death row that, because of technology that didn't exist then, that exists now, who were found not to just be not guilty, because that's one legal level, but they were actually found to be innocent, absolutely innocent. There is a DNA case that is on the website on your website, of this gentleman who was accused of rape and identified by the victim, and then they found out later that there was absolutely no way that could have been him. Zero.
Yeah.
So he was on his way to get a needle in his arm, or however they do it, and they found out that that they were wrong. So what gets me, even from a moral standpoint, what gets me is How many people do you think the state has murdered erroneously?
Yeah, these are so again, uh, we have 200 death row exonerees, which tells me that's 200 times we almost got it wrong. We don't have an exact number of how many times we did get it wrong. So now the question is, well, what number are you comfortable with? To me, one innocent person put to death is one person too many. Okay. But for someone else whose threshold may be a little higher than that, I just ask the question, well, what number are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with human beings who have proven over the course of life to be fallible, to get many things wrong?
To at least be fallible, at least fallible.
Right, right. So government has proven itself over and over to be corrupt, to be inept. Okay. When I talk to audiences, I like to do a quick survey right there on the spot. And I ask them this question. How many of you trust the government to deliver your mail on time? No one's hands goes up, especially when I say during the holiday season.
Uh,
Right. Here's another one, Willie. Do you trust the government to give you accurate COVID numbers? Here's another one. Do you trust the government to accurately download a group chat and not have the contents of the conversations be leaked out?
uh,
No, right?
no,
So,
not at all.
so I asked this question, and it's not intended to be hyperbolic, but why would we trust the government literally with our life? Because that is what the utilization of capital punishment is. It is saying, hey, we trust the government to administer the one punishment that is uh, that you can't go back and say, oops, I made a mistake. Is the one punishment that there isn't a remedy for. If I accidentally paint the wall a different color, I can rectify that problem by go getting the right color, right? If I accidentally make a plumbing mistake, well, I can just get the same company or a different company to come and fix the problem. But the capital punishment is the one punishment that there is no remedy for. Once you get it wrong, you've gotten it wrong, and there is no going back.
And what do you
Irreversible.
what do you say to the people who go, I believe, no, I don't necessarily believe this, so don't be mad at me. I believe that is a deterrent for crime,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't think that I think the evidence says that it's not a deterrent.
No, it's not a deterrent for crime. As a matter of fact, I forgot what year it was, but there was a poll that was recently conducted amongst chief of police officers where they admitted that it is not a deterrent for crime and that it is mostly used for those that want to invoke this tough on crime mantra, right? But no, it's not a deterrent to crime because if it was a deterrent to crime, crime wouldn't be happening.
There'd be no murders.
Yeah,
Murders
absolutely.
would be at an all murders would be at an all-time low. And what we know about murders is that most murders are crimes of passion where people get mad at each other for whatever reason
Sure.
and go off the hinge, and that's where most murders come from, not from some calculated thing that we see on television on 60 Minutes or
I think it warrants us
snaps.
to have a conversation of what are deterrents to crime, right? What are some things that we can do that will prevent someone from committing an act that's going to land them on death row? And so we can have the conversations of what are some conservative solutions to community-centered alternatives to the death penalty or programs or entities that can serve as a deterrent to crime. And to me, this is not so much where government serves as a solution, but we can look towards churches, towards faith-based entities, to community organizations, to local crime prevention organizations that can sort of serve as a model and a template for what it will look like um, to be a violence intervention program.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we hear this kind of talk all the time, but we never see much motion to that area, especially because I think this is one of the many third rails in the conservative and especially the conservative Republican movement. This is one of the many third rails that you don't want to talk about because that rail may get you on race, and Republicans don't want to talk about race. Third rails. I'll talk about it. I love this one. I don't even see color. I go, then maybe you need to see an optometrist possibly because it's out there. So I think everybody is exactly the same. I think everybody's situation is exactly the same. No, it's not. So how have you been able to interface with the rank and file? I'm not talking about conservatives or libertarians. The rank and file Republicans who are just not going to touch this third rail because for them it is law and
Well,
order.
well, yeah. We do live in a society, right? And the political culture right now is law and order, retribution, and
Revenge.
revenge.
because
But
because the death penalty is straight up revenge.
it is, it is. Now, 15 or 20 years ago, Willie, if we were having this conversation, then I there would definitely be reason to be pessimistic. But however, if we look at what current trends are showing us, there's reason to be optimistic, and here's why. In October of 2023, there was a Gallup poll that showed for the very first time, over the 50% majority of Americans at a minimum had concerns about the death penalty. Okay. Now, in the 90s, early 2000s, those numbers were reversed. So current trends are on our side. Number two, more and more Republicans are starting to shift from capital punishment. There's a couple of reasons why. As we discussed at the beginning of this conversation, the fiscal component. Here's another interesting fact. Um, I actually talked to a Republican lawmaker. His name is Representative Russ Diamond out of Pennsylvania. Representative Diamond just introduced, and when I say just introduced, about a month and a half ago, maybe a month ago, just introduced a death penalty repeal bill in Pennsylvania. Republican. Here's why. Now, he's pro-life, but he said the reason why is because he witnessed what President Trump went through with the DOJ. And he says that if they can go after the president of the United States, what makes you think that they can't go after ordinary citizens, Willie, like you and me? And that warns us to present this question to conservatives and libertarians. If the president of the United States, the commander in chief, the most powerful man, not just in the United States, but in the world, if he feels targeted by Department of Justice, what do you think ordinary Americans feel that don't have the economic resources to acquire what it would take to have adequate legal defense against capital punishment? Well, what do you think the government does? What do you think capital punishment is designed to do? It is designed, and I'm glad that you brought up the race factor. Capital punishment is designed for those who don't have the legal resources, which in a lot of cases have been people of color. It is designed to be used against them, right? So, a government big enough to give you everything you want is also big enough to take away everything you have. Your rights, your liberties, in your freedom. So that's why we're seeing the shift towards conservative. They already have an inherent distrust of government. And over the years, that distrust of government has become escalated. And because of distrust of government, because of the innocence factor, because many Republicans and conservatives are starting to see the correlation between being pro-life and being anti-death penalty. For this reason and more, Willie, there's reason to have optimism that this trend of being anti-death penalty will continue.
Awesome. That is, you're right. That is encouraging, because it was one of those things that you'd always, when I used to get into conversations or quote debates. I don't do that anymore with folks. I just don't do that anymore. It's for black folks, for the most part, it's pig wrestling. You get dirty and the pig likes it. So I'm like, I'm not going to go round and around with you. And y'all in East Tampa know that I don't go around and around with y'all. I don't. But it was a fair question. It's like, how can you be pro-life and pro-death penalty? And
So,
I came to the conclusion was that you can't. So
yeah,
life is life, period.
that's the origin of how I became anti-death penalty. Listen, I thought I knew what it was like to be pro-life, Willie. I'm adopted. Um, my biological mother had 5 kids. All 5 of us have different fathers. My biological father had 4 sons. All 4 of us have different mothers. It is because of the miraculous nature of Almighty God that I am actually sitting here and having this conversation with you.
Amen.
Statistically, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm pro-life, not because it's political. I'm pro-life because it's personal.
Mm.
And I thought I knew what it was like to be pro-life. My dad was a pastor. I'm a minister. I always grew up in a socially conservative home. But it wasn't until I had a conversation with my pastor at the time in the early 2000s about what it's like to be pro-life, and I brought up the death penalty. I said, "What do you think?" And he says, "Well, it's hard for me to be pro-life and simultaneously pro-death." And it was that statement right there, Willie, that caused a light bulb to go off in my head. And what it did, it forced me to reevaluate my stance. And I had to tell myself, Demetrius, if you're going to be pro-life, you got to be consistent with it. And I want to tell people that, especially pro-lifers, that being pro-life does not mean that I agree with how you live your life. It simply means I agree that you have a right to live. And it was that conversation with my pastor at the time that totally changed my life. And that's why I oppose the death penalty.
That makes You see, here's what you're doing again. You're making sense. Stop it. People don't like that. People don't like that when you start making sense. When you start,
Common sense isn't so common anymore.
well, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, and we can get into it, but it would take years. So tell me about concerned conservatives. Tell me about what they're doing, how people can get involved, how they can help out.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions to ask. Number one, I direct people to our website, www.conservativesconcern.org. You can help us out in multiple ways. Number one, you can help us out financially. Go to conservativesconcern.org and click donate. Number two, especially if you're conservative libertarian, sign our statement of support. You will see that on our website, and you can also sign up for more updates and more news. We have a lot of things going on. We have campaigns in Indiana, in Pennsylvania, in Oklahoma, where we have a moratorium bill. We also, I like to share this with your audience. We have a success story. We had a bill that was actually passed in Georgia that would, those with intellectual disabilities would not have to face a capital punishment sentence. And so that passed both the Senate and the House. which is GOP controlled unanimously, and now it's headed to Governor Kemp's desk for his signature. And in 40 days, it probably a little bit less now, less than 40 days, it will automatically become law. So there are some exciting things that are happening nationwide, and we'll be more than happy to have your support.
Outstanding, outstanding. And I'm gonna edit this, and the website will be down there on the bottom, and it'll also be in the description on YouTube. All right, Demetrius, thank you ever so much for spending some time with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you offering your perspective unabashedly, because that's what's needed to move forward. And if we're not moving forward, I don't know what we're doing if we're not moving forward. I heard once that if you're not flying, you're dying. So you got to be moving forward. All right.
Go big or go home, right?
That's exactly right. Again, thank you ever so much for dropping by and spending some time with us today.
Thank you for allowing me. I appreciate the conversation. Thank you,
My
Will.
pleasure. All right.